Hello and welcome to Gardening in 58 North. So in this video I'd like to give you guys an update on my Pelargonium cuttings here. So as you can see, most of them have actually done really well. We've got some really good growth. I had these under grow light probably for a month or two just after I repotted them because they were quite weak, had a bit of root disturbance, and I wanted them to get well established. They put up quite a few nice leaves, but they didn't put on a huge amount of growth. And then what happened is I transferred them to the conservatory. They've been in here for several months now. It's been quite cold, but recently we had a lot of snowfall, very cold temperatures, and actually that extra snowfall meant that there was a lot of extra light because it was reflecting into the conservatory. And also we, because the time of year is now February, so the light level started getting much better. And since then they've really put on some really nice growth, starting to look really good. But I have got a couple of issues which I need to deal with soon. And the main issue is I've got vine weevils. Vine weevils have been causing a huge amount of problems. Vine weevils, what they do is it's a little beetle and it lays its eggs in the soil. The eggs then hatch and the tiny little larvae, they look like maggots. They live underground, they eat the roots off the plants, and you don't know anything's happening. You just notice your plant isn't growing very quickly, and then all of a sudden it'll die or it'll fall over because it's got no roots left. So it's a big issue in pot plants and it's a big issue in wintertime. In summertime in the garden it's not normally a problem because there's so many roots for the larvae to eat on that it doesn't impact one plant too badly. And also there's quite a lot of predators in the soil that can eat the larvae. But in a pot in winter it's a big issue because the vine weevil beetle will lay its eggs, but it'll lay several eggs in a small pot. The larvae, they don't have much to eat, so they just focus the attack on that one individual plant, and that can completely kill the plant. Also in winter the plants are growing slowly, so they can't grow the roots faster than they're being eaten, and they'll die off. So there's a couple here which are showing some signs, and there's a couple of plants which are really badly damaged. So this one, for example, is probably going to die unless I take a cutting from it. And it's basically that the first sign was its growth slowed right down, then the leaves started to look a bit wilted, then it got really loose, and the vine weevils have got so bad they're actually climbing up into the stem and hollowing out the stem. So you can see there was actually a vine weevil earlier when I looked, but I think it might have burrowed back into the ground. But they've actually gone up the stem and hollowed it out from the inside. And underneath here there's probably not going to be many roots at all. They've all been eaten off. Same with this one here, it's very loose. That's an obvious sign the roots have been damaged. So I'll pull this one up because I don't think it will survive. We'll see if we've got any larvae. So the roots there don't look too bad, but you can definitely see the stem has been hollowed out by something. And I'll see if I can find a larva for you so I can show you what they look like. So I've had a dig around in one of the composts and I found one of the larvae. If you're a bit squeamish, just skip ahead a few seconds, but I'll show you the larva here. So it does look a bit like a little grub or a maggot. You can see there it's got a head, it's starting to crawl around. So these can cause a huge amount of damage. The main reason being is you don't know that they're attacking your plants. There's no obvious signs until it's too late and you've lost most of the roots on the plant and the plant just dies. So this is a big problem. I don't know how many of these plants have been infected. There's certainly a few which have wobbly stems, and quite a few which are starting to get a bit weaker. So I'm going to have to look out for any more vine weevils. One of the other things that make vine weevil attacks so difficult to treat is because they're underground, you can't really get to them very easily, so you normally have to soak them with nematodes or with a pesticide treatment. Now because mine are starting to crawl into the stems, I probably can't use a nematode treatment. It only works in the soil, so I'll probably have to use a pesticide if I want to save these plants. I don't like using pesticides though, so what I'm going to do is probably stay off from the pesticide, dispose any plants that look like they're looking a bit dodgy, keep the rest of them and just hope for the best. But if it does get really bad, I might use pesticide as a last resort. But any stems that are starting to get loose, because the way that these plants grow, they're quite fleshy. Normally vine weevils wouldn't attack the stems because they're too woody, but because these are pelargoniums, they've actually got a kind of succulent stem, so that it's definitely soft enough and juicy enough for the larva to eat. And once the stem gets damaged, the plant's never going to fully recover. Even if it does make some sort of recovery, it's going to fall over and snap quite easily. So the only way to really recover from that would be to cut off the lower material and take a new cutting. But I've got plenty of plants, so I don't need to keep all of these. There's probably too many, more than I need anyway. And I've also got a few pots which have about 5 cuttings in them. I might actually split some of them up into individual pots, so I've got a bit more just in case. So what I need to do now is need to put these outside. It's actually warmed up now. there's no frost for at least a week, I'm going to put them outside. I need them to grow a bit hardier. It's going to keep getting warmer in this conservatory because the sun's getting brighter now. We're coming into spring, and once we get some strong sunshine, it'll get quite hot in here. And although these plants are absolutely fine with high temperatures, I'm a bit worried they're going to get too leggy and they're going to not really respond well when I take them outside in the spring, because they'll be so used to a really hot environment. Once they go out to a cold Scottish spring, they're really going to suffer. So what I'm going to do is put them out in the greenhouse, but before I do that I have to prune them because some of them are getting quite tall and they're going to be quite top heavy and the wind's going to damage them. And the other reason for pruning them is I want a bushier, compact growth. So I think this one here is probably the best example. This is the one that's grown probably the biggest and the leggiest. You can see there the growth between the stems is really long. You don't want that, you want quite short growth. Otherwise you're going to have problems with it snapping off and becoming leggy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it off around about here. That will actually encourage some new growth to come up from these lower shoots, and also I want to encourage more growth from the bottom. Some of these cuttings are particularly bare at the base, such as this one for example. You can see there's quite a bit of leaf at the top, but there's a long section here where there's not really any shoots at all. So if I cut that top off, it'll encourage shoots further down. Once they get a good number of shoots established further down, what I'll do is I'll cut this off right down low, and then they can start with nice bushy plants. What I'm looking for is something a bit more like this, where it's a nice bushy plant, lots of low down growth, nothing too tall and leggy. That will survive the wind much better in spring when I take it outside. So what I'm going to do now is get my secateurs, give these all a cut back, and then take them out to the greenhouse. So I'll just quickly give you an example of this one. As I said before, I'll cut it around about this level here, and then that should allow some resprouting from these lower sections. Once they do resprout, I'll then cut it down to about this level. So with this one for example, there's not much growth down here, but still I need to give it a cut. I'm probably just going to cut it here. Any of these lower nodes then start to resprout. I'll have a nice bushy plant. So that's them now all cut back. It does feel like a bit of a shame because there's a lot of healthy growth taken off them. You can see all the material in there. Quite a big bucket full of cutting material. I could have, if I wanted to, save some of these stems. They would actually make quite good cuttings. They're decent size and nice and healthy. Would make good cutting material. As I said before, I've got loads of plants at the moment, and there's a few pots which have about 5 in them, such as this pot over here. So I don't need any more. But if I didn't cut these back, as I said before, they get too leggy, the wind will blow them over. So although in the short term I've got smaller plants, it doesn't look as great. In the long term, this is going to be really beneficial because I have really nice, small, bushy plants which can handle the strong winds we'll have here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it in my greenhouse. I don't have all the glass in the greenhouse, so it's not really like a greenhouse situation. It's not going to get hot during the day. It's just really to keep the wind away from them. It's a bit more sheltered in there, keeps the wind away, and also the worst of the winter rain. Because these are plants that like a Mediterranean style climate, they like kind of dry, warm weather. If they're sitting in soaking wet, cold rain, the roots will probably rot off. So the greenhouse will just keep them a little bit drier, so they won't get too wet. I'll keep them out there, hopefully for the rest of the year, but I doubt it. As I say, we had minus 15 a couple of days ago, so it's really cold. The rest of this week's about 8 or 9 degrees during the day, maybe about 2 degrees at night. Anything below -1 and I'll take these inside. About 0 is fine for these. They can take a very light frost, but any hard frost they'll definitely be killed. So I just need to keep an eye on the weather forecast, but I'll keep them out for at least a week. Hopefully we'll have a bit longer without frost, but I reckon I'll probably have to take these in and out a few times until spring, until the weather really warms up a bit. But I am hoping to get some glass in the greenhouse soon, and then hopefully I can leave these outside in the greenhouse for longer. The high temperatures will really help these grow fast, and the high light levels should negate any of the elongation. The problem is here in the conservatory, until summertime, this doesn't get a huge amount of direct sunlight because it's behind the house. It only gets afternoon sun. It only gets the midday sun from about May onwards. So in the greenhouse will be a lot more light levels. Even though the high temperatures, the high light levels will keep the plants a little bit shorter. Also, if I keep them on the dry side, they should also not get too long and leggy. So that's about it for this update. I'll give you guys an update sometime in summer. One of the plants that did die completely was this one in the trough. There's 3 mother plants in this trough. These are some of the plants to call the cuttings from, and they've been resprouting okay. They've not looked the healthiest, but they have actually got some nice growth from them. But this one's completely died. It's a bit wobbly. I can feel the stems are a bit soft, so I suspect that could also be vine weevils. So we'll see how they do. Hopefully I don't lose too many more. If I do start to lose them, I'll probably just cut the tops off, use the tops as cuttings, and I should be able to save some even if I do lose a lot. But as I say before, I've got loads at the moment, so I can probably afford to lose a few.